Hi. I'm continuing on doing the three-strand braids above the upper curve of the copper shield. And I just wanted to share with you my first uh, instruction with the naaxiin. So I think I've taught this, and several other people have taught this, but this whole plan was done and planned by Cheryl Samuel. And I think I mentioned earlier that I had written a grant when I lived in in the state of Washington, um, and wrote a grant to study with her. And this was the project that she uh, had given me instructions for, written instructions, and then afterwards critiqued my work. She never really was right there with me. If I had questions, then I would call her and or my mother. So I really learned a lot in a distant learning kind of way, through the telephone and not through Zoom or FaceTime or anything like that. There was no visual demonstrations for me, but there was the instructions, written instructions. And so in this sample, and it was a sample, I just recently turned it into a pouch. I love it. I don't know why I didn't think of that sooner. But anyway, these triangles were very good exercise as to how to learn to weave back and forth, and how to fit the next color into a step join and just fitting them together. And you can see the step joins here. And then the next exercise was the waves. Now this is very much a raven's tail technique, as far as you can see through the weft and you can see the bits of the cedar in the warp. So it's got the spacing like a raven's tail robe in one style, where you space the what Cheryl liked to call the snow rose. And then there was the waves. And with the waves, we also learned to go back and forth. But then we also incorporated the rows of three-strand twining that helped us recognize how well that smoothed out those step joins. So, and there was a challenge to keep these from really being straight. Visually, you almost see a curve, but they're pretty straight. And then we go back to the raven's tail technique of bringing up the color you want. And then there's a tunic. At the bottom of a tunic, you often put these wrapped twine around there. And also naaxiin signatures often are done, well, they're done with this technique. So it was a nice beginning project. And Cheryl Samuel did all of that work. And that's a lot of work, really analyzing what you're doing, putting it down on paper in a way that you can understand it. And so I've seen other people teach. I've taught this project, and I always make sure that I let people know that it was Cheryl Samuels who did all of that work, putting down those instructions. I've shared a naaxiin face instruction. I've taught a naaxiin face instruction several times up in the Totem Heritage Center, and I have also taught people here in Haida Gwaii the face. So people have walked away with my face instructions, and that took me a long time to write down and have those instructions. So I really hope that if people use my face instruction and it moves beyond the people I've taught, that they do the same thing as I'm doing here, really recognizing who did the work, who did that work, so that you could instruct people. So I hope people do that for my face instruction. I've seen people's weavings really improve after they've followed those instructions. Their noses turn out better. Their eyes are now better because of my instructions. And I've seen some teachers go on and use my face instructions. And I'm just saying, please recognize that I'm the one who did that. So that's an issue, you know. An issue is because a lot of times we can't legally copyright some of these things. So it's just a matter of honor and respect when people recognize your work, when you share that work with other people. So anyway, like I said, I'm still doing the smoothing braids, and I talked about that pretty good last time. I'll show you that when you're doing these, I go down the row. I do all the black. I do all the black braids. Then the first white braid, I do all those, and then so on. So I would like to say that is what I do. When you have a line of circles, you create the top, then you put the black, then you put the white, then you put the black, then you put the white. So you don't just do one circle and then go to the next circle and do all the braids, and then go to the next circle and do all the braids. I like to measure out my wefts all at once, all of the number of wefts I'm going to use with the black. I measure them out, I cut them. All the wefts I'm going to use with the white, I measure them out and cut them, so that when I'm weaving along, I'm not stopping and cutting these lengths of weft. And the lengths of weft that I'm using here isn't much more than a yard, a little over a yard. I think when you measure a yard, you're here and here to your wrist, and I kind of measure from here to here, just a little extra long, probably more than what I need. But oftentimes you want your wefts to rest over the bar, be long enough to rest over the bar loom. But now that we're trying to be frugal with our material, I know our ancestors were very frugal with this material because the material was mountain goat. And not only was it very spiritual, but it was also very difficult to climb mountains. And also it was expensive. If you were trading with a neighbor, it would be something that was worth a good trade. So to honor the ancestors, even if you had a room full of wefts, it's good to honor them in a frugal, by working with your wefts in a frugal manner, and be not so. But then sometimes I'm like, just a little bit more, and it'll go over my bar loom, and it'll rest, and it'll stay out of place. But in order to prevent a huge amount of weft, I also hang the bar that will help rest these wefts in place. So welcome. The rest of this I'm not going to be demonstrating. I'll be talking more about another project that I used these shields with. So welcome. This is my daughter's work. She followed my face instructions, and this is her first project for naaxiin, and she did quite well, so that's quite nice. Now, I was talking about doing things like a row of circles, everything at once, and but this cape that I did about 15 years ago, it also has a line of a naaxiin of copper shields. And I just wanted to show you that at one point I am doing all of them and handling them at the same time, the same way across the field. But then it gets to the point where I'm taking them one at a time. So here you'll see I've started working at them one at a time and doing the lower half of the shield, and then doing the black in the between those shields. And logically, you pretty much have to do that. It would be very difficult to handle them all across the board at once you get to the stage where you're working that lower section of the shield. So we'll be doing the same thing as I work across the shield with my robe that I'm working on now. I'd also like to say that to remind you that this is one of the stories that I told earlier about Edenshaw coming with his canoe and the Chief Wea putting those shields down to greet him. So thank you for joining me, and we'll be doing these shields for a while now. So, Hawa.